Hello, good Opinion members. It's Michael and Kim Chen. We'll give you a few minutes to have some others join us. Hey, Nicolà is there. This is brilliant.
Hi, Nicolà.
Nicolà, it's the middle of the night.
It is the middle of the night.
Yes. We are delighted to see you on the call.
I'm like hardcore.
Really?
Yes, that's right. Do you have a camera or no?
I do have a camera. I don't know why it's not working. Oh.
Maybe you in your gym jams and you're.
No, I'm not. I'm
There
fully
you are.
handcuffed. So this is look, you can see outside. It's pitch black. So
It is
Yeah.
pitch black. Where are you, Nicolà?
there's some in Toro.
You're in Toro. You can see the vines all around you.
Well, not right now. It's 1 a.m.
No. We were going to tell everybody your plane was late, Nicolà.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let me do a quick introduction. We're 2 minutes past the hour here. It's a different hour everywhere in Canada as well as around the world, Nicolà. And Michael Palij happens to be in our Montreal office. He's doing tastings today, yesterday, and I think tomorrow too, right? Right.
Yeah.
And,
So we're tasting for.
No.
308.
Michael probably is the taster. Yeah.
So it was Portugal today. Yes, I never want to see another Portuguese wine as long as I live.
until next year, Michael.
Until next year.
That's right. Yeah. So we've got everybody muted, but feel free to share your cameras if you'd like to. You don't have to. We're going to be taking questions in the chat, so type those into the chat. I'll keep an eye on those, as will Kim Chen. Thank you, Kim Chen, for running the board for us tonight. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names here on the call today, so welcome everybody. And Nicolà, thank you so much. I know it really is very late. Thank you for joining us. Michael, thanks to you too, I guess. You know, it's relatively early in Montreal, and you haven't had dinner yet, have you, Michael?
Well, Kim Chen very kindly brought me in a panino and some homemade soup, so I am fine.
Oh, well, that's good. Okay, so this is the master's case tasting for. You're gonna have to tell me, Kim Chen, what number are we now?
294.
294. Close, Michael. Close. So, and just so everybody knows, I do have the wines here with me, as does Michael in Montreal. Nicolà, I don't know if you have them where you are, but there you are. Yes. So you see, we have wine everywhere around the world. We have Opinion wines, and the master's case was designed to show 3 different styles of wine and compare and contrast those, and to just show you, to let our producers shine. And we do find that this is so terrific that we have a master of wine here with us, and we have the founder of Spanish Palate here with us, Nicolà. And so, who needs me? Like, I'm going to let you two talk about it. We've got a white and 2 reds here, and what we want to do is bring that to the Opinion members and what they have in their glass, because everybody on the call should have their wines with them now. And I know some people don't like to open all 3 all at once. I happen to like doing that, and then my friends really like me because I have to finish the bottle with them. So, and see, Jean-Paul wants one of my jokes, but I, just so you know, on the master's case ones, I don't do the jokes because I want Nicolà and Michael Palij to be the center of attention. So why don't Nicolà, can I know that you're just coming on, but why don't you tell us a little bit about Spanish Palate and these 3 wines? Have you had time to prepare for that?
I don't really need to prepare, because our relationship, Spanish Palate, with Opinion is so wonderful, so natural, and it really does come from the heart. And we have a super strong common goal of really searching out the best of wines from Spain, that there's no monopoly in Canada that would bring these wines in, because they're just too unique, they're too special. And together, Spanish Palate and Opimium, we've created this relationship which brings amazing, unique wines. I mean, most of our producers are too small or too unique to even know how to get to a monopoly, you know. So, and I constantly say this every time we have a conversation with Opimium. I think you really are the best wine club that I know in the world. I know it sounds, you know, I'm trying to build you up, but it really is. I'm a Brit living in Spain for the last 25 years, working in the wine industry. And Opimium, what you guys are doing to bring these amazing small production wines to your members is an amazing job. And between us, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of work, and to put these wines together in this master's case is just genius. And if you were just focused on making money, there's no organization around the world that would put these wines together with all the effort that goes into them, because it just doesn't make sense. So the members really of Opimium are just blessed with the access to these incredible wines. So, and I put these wines together. I have it, to put these wines together, imagine, right? I just want you to imagine. Spanish Palate often supplies maybe 30 wines for their Opimium offer. And those 30 wines maybe come from 10, 12 producers all around Spain. We bring them all to here together, and then we relabel them on the outer case, and then we repackage them. So the wines that go from to Nova Scotia, to Prince Edward Island, to Quebec, etc. So it's a massive logistics operation. And as at Spanish Palate, we love it. So the month of June for us, it's boiling hot here in Spain, and it's the month of Opimium. So it's the month that we dedicate to you guys to make sure that all these wines get to you. And so we bring in half the village with, you know, lots of muscle, and we put all this together. We adore our producers. We give them a voice in international markets, and we look for people like Opimium around the world. And I can tell you, there's not many outlets like Opimium to bring these wines to the world. So you guys did a great job.
Well, that's very kind of you, Nicolà. I think that's all we need to say. Thanks, Michael, for joining us. And Nicolà, that's
it really is, though. I mean, you guys, I don't know how lucky the members realize that they are. I don't know how lucky our producers know that they are. And between us, we make it happen. And it's super special. And it's really important that the whole chain, from our producers to you guys, you know, we're there and we're doing it, and it's amazing. It's unique in the world. So thank you so much.
It's our pleasure, and certainly we thank you as well for making the effort that you've just described to put something like this together. So and Michael, that leaves you to you've got a very high bar there to reach.
Well, far be it for me to say anything nice about Opimium, Michael. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll get the other side now.
Yeah.
Michael, where are you from?
So sorry.
Where are you from?
I'm Canadian by birth, but I live in the UK.
Okay, whereabouts? Did they pollute you? Whereabouts in the UK?
I live just north of London.
Okay, so you need to come to my part of the world. So I'm from Yorkshire, and the people are so nice.
Right.
You need to move up a little bit further. You find all the love.
I'll take that. I'll take that under consideration. So just to paint the background for the region of Rioja first, and then we can move over to Leon. So Rioja was originally settled by the French. So post phylloxera, the Francophiles who were essentially trying to escape, they're trying to outrun phylloxera, ended up going to Rioja and found this sort of ideal situation for viticulture, because it was half kind of Mediterranean, if you like, environment, and half maritime. So not quite as maritime as Bordeaux, but it had elements of that, and it was slightly more reliable. And so the wine industry there doesn't have the history that, I don't know, it would have in Tuscany or would have in Bordeaux. So it dates back a few hundred years, although viticulture in Rioja dates back a lot longer than that. But Rioja, as we know it today, is a kind of 19th century construct. And then viticulture was flourishing. Of course, phylloxera came, and it was treated in exactly the same way it was everywhere else. And then the other interesting historical bit in Rioja is Franco. So Franco kind of standardized all of the industry throughout Spain in just about everything. And in the 1950s and 60s, to be a producer in Rioja, you needed to have 1,000 barrels. This was one of the rules that Franco came up with. And so production in Rioja ended up becoming in the hands of a few people. And so there's now a new generation in the last sort of 30 or 40 years who are starting up. And of course, now all of that regulation that Franco started has gone. But historically, if you go back into the 1970s, there were sort of 4 or 5 major producers in Rioja, and all of that has changed now. So what I found really exciting about these 3 wines, particularly 2 from Rioja, both of these are from Rioja Baja, which is the most easterly of the regions within Rioja. And I love both of them. They're really classic. Tempranillo Blanco, for me, are also called Albilla. I first came across in Ribera del Duero. And when I was there in the 90s in Ribera del Duero, there was this whisper that they made white wines. And of course, it's against the law. You can make white Rioja, but white Rioja was never made out of Tempranillo Blanco. And in Ribera del Duero, you can't make white Ribera del Duero. So you would sort of go into a bar and you see this local white wine and not really be too sure of what it was. And they would whisper that it was Albilla. And of course, the legislation has changed now. And it's great to see Tempranillo Blanco bottled for what it is. And for the delicious white wine that it is. So I don't know. Nicola, do you want to sort of, I don't know, say a bit more about the wine? You know more about the wine than I do, so maybe if you do that bit, that might be helpful.
Okay, I mean, it's interesting about the Ribera white wine, by the way, that in 2017, 18, I never remember, they the DO in Ribera said, okay, now we can make white wine. So like all of the hot red wine regions of Spain, they always had their white grape that was purely grown just to beef up the acidity in the red wines. And then when that sort of became illegal, and the white grapes went out of favor, and over the last sort of, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years, the white grapes in these very hot red wine regions of Spain have now become super in fashion. So I'm in Toro, which is 2 hours northwest of Madrid, and Malvasia was the grape that was, used to beef up the acidity for the Tinta de Toro. And in Ribera del Duero, it was Albillo that was used to beef up the acidity in the Tempranillo or the Tinta Fino, whatever you want to call it. And now all of a sudden, they're like the coolest things. And Tempranillo Blanco in Rioja is really the cool and hip thing that everybody in Spain is drinking. So this Tempranillo Blanco, it was actually a natural hybrid that was, according to my information, Bodegas Mateo, historic winemakers, they've been growing grapes since time began. And after phylloxera, their families were completely devastated. They replanted and very bravely replanted. And over the years, this Tempranillo Blanco just emerged out of one vineyard, and it was a natural mutation between a Tempranillo and another white varietal in Rioja, and Bodegas Mateo claim that it's in their vineyards. So they've had all kinds of universities from all over the world, and you go to this site, which is the first supposedly white Tempranillo, and there's university signs from all over the world doing experiments. So absolutely interesting and super fantastic. I remember sort of over, I don't know, 20 years ago, I went to Switzerland and they said Tempranillo, white Tempranillo on the menu. And I said, oh, bless them, the Swiss, they don't know anything about wine. And I said, but I will order that. And I tasted it and I looked at the label and I'm like, geez, what's this? And so it's really become a major thing. It's not massively aromatic, but has wonderful acidity because we have higher elevation. And within Rioja, it tends to be grown now on higher elevation soils. It's not incredibly tropical. It's slightly more mineral character. It's really refreshing, has a wonderful boost in the mid palate. And I could drink this for breakfast, really. Imagine an aperitif with a bit of Spanish sun. You're cooking out on the barbecue, in come your guests, and you give them a glass of this. Or you've had a hard week at work, it's Thursday night, you come home and you just want something really nice and refreshing with juicy, punchy acidity. Have a glass of Tempranillo Blanco from Bodegas Mateo. And I think it does an amazing job. And the price quality is just amazing. So potentially you've got the first vineyard of Tempranillo Blanco, white Tempranillo in the world. And these guys still, I think like 6th generation, 5th generation, they're still going strong. Mateo, obviously Mateo, named after his grandfather, his father's grandfather's great-grandfather, and his son is also called Mateo. They're doing an amazing job of carrying the flag for Rioja Occidental, which is the eastern part of Rioja. So the big names on Rioja have constantly come from Rioja Alta or Rioja, more recently, Rioja Alavesa, which is right in the north with the mountains right against the Atlantic coast. But sort of the southeast part of Rioja, which is where this wine comes from, is being considered sort of the ugly duck. And now it's getting the recognition because people are like, okay, it was just politics. The grapes are amazing, the soil is amazing. And this region, it was mostly grown by the co-ops. It's like less than a handful of co-ops. And Bodegas Mateo said, okay, we have some of the most amazing vineyards in the world. Why are we just offloading them to the co-op? And then the co-op is selling them to the big brands of Rioja that you all know and love. So Bodegas Mateo, the current generation, very, very bravely said, okay, let's make our own wine. And this is the result. And they are doing an amazing job. Quality, creativity, they are really looking after the local varietals like Tempranillo Blanco, Old Fine Garnacha. They're doing an amazing job. So absolutely well worth the money and just delicious, really.
We have a glassware question from John and Theresa in the chat about whether you would drink this in a Chard glass or a Sauv Blanc glass. Are either of you a Riedel, that Riedel expects that there should be a glass for every single varietal?
I've run out of cupboard space. I don't think anybody has enough cupboards to house all the various iterations of Riedel glassware.
Yes.
So to be really honest with you, I've gone to all the Riedel masterclasses. I do see that there is a difference, but I suppose it's always about reproducibility for me. So could I do that blind? And if I can't do it blind, then I don't really care, because then it isn't a difference that is consistent. So I do see the difference, but I'm not sure whether or not that's reproducible for me. So what I drink out of ISOs most of the time, that's because when I do the washing up, I'm really clumsy and I break them. And then I've got for high days and holidays, I've got Zalto white and Zalto red. That's it.
Right. And Nicola, have you any glassware opinion?
I love a lovely glassware, and we've got we live in Toro, is a tiny little medieval village, and we've got this one place that really does pushes the border with their glassware. So if you want to go and have the most expensive glass you've ever had, it's like they pay like 45 euros a glass. Just for the glassware, right?
Right.
But I have to say, it does make a difference, but it depends on what kind of wine. So if we're on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday kind of wine, I just want to enjoy the glass without freaking out about the price if I'm going to break it, because these amazing, incredible, expensive glasses, they have such a fine stem that I'm concentrating on not breaking the glass rather than, these grape growers have been growing grapes and we're working really hard for 500 years. So I have this. This is my standard glass, and it's a Scotch. It's what the DOs, the appellations, almost all over Spain give, and it's a really nice glass for every occasion. If you want to push the boat out, it does feel luxurious when you take that stem in your hand. Of course it does.
Yes.
But does that stem, the feeling, take away from the pleasure of the wine? You have to figure that out.
Yeah, and from my perspective, like I find the Riedel, the thinner glass is more, it's nicer to drink from than a chunky glass or one with a really heavy base and that sort of thing. But the shape does make sense, especially Michael, you've suggested that you've done the Riedel tasting. We're going to do another one in May with Riedel, and we're trying to get Maximilian to actually be the host for it. And certainly when we do the 4 wines with the 4 different glass shapes, it makes a huge difference. But what you're suggesting is if you can't reproduce that blind, correct?
No, exactly that.
Yeah.
But I think that to answer the question, which is to answer the question about, you know, Chardonnay, so broader rim glass or a tidier tulip shaped glass, I think for this one, as Nicola said, it's not desperately aromatic. There's no oak on this. So I think that more of a tulip shaped glass will concentrate the aromas a little bit more. We haven't really spoken much about this, and I wanted to say a few words about the wine itself.
Yes, please.
I love the aroma. So first of all, this is unoaked, and that always scores highly in my book, because I think oak is so often used as a kind of, you know, this sort of sticking plaster over the, you know, the cracks in the wine. And looking at what we were tasting today, so we must have tasted, I don't know, you know, 75 Portuguese reds today. And you can really tell the ones where they've been trying to up the oak with oak chips. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. And all of those wines, you know, from my tasting got marked down where I noticed that, because if the fruit's good, you don't need the oak. And I think this wine, I love, so this lemon pith, lime, there's a faint floral note, like kind of acacia or honeysuckle, white grapefruit pith. So it's all in that kind of citrus floral spectrum. And that's what makes it so good with fish. This is a white wine that is not going to pair with, you know, heavy cream sauces or chicken or anything else. This is at home with shellfish, fish on its own as an aperitif, and it really comes into its own. I love that zippy acidity, which really provides some lift for the fruit. And there's no malolactic here. I don't think, I'm guessing, I don't know what the specs are, but I don't think it's run mallow, no oak, and it's just crisp and clean, no caffeine, perfect kind of, you know, just coming into drinking it now. So I'm a big fan of this. I think there's, as you said, Nicola, there's a bit of interest there. It's a great variety you don't see very often. It's hugely drinkable. It's really well made. It's not expensive. You know, what isn't to like?
And if you imagine you have a dinner party at home, and you want to put something as an aperitif as people come in and you welcome them while you're finishing preparing the rest of the food, this is just perfect. It has a nice acidity, which really gets the palate sort of salivating and really just sort of generating excitement as you're going into the next course. And imagine out there a little bit of heat over the summer. If you've got some of this in your cellar, you're coming in, well, right now in Spain, it's 28 degrees in the northern part of Spain. It's 40 degrees in the southern part of Spain. So it's 1 a.m., 1:24, and I'm still in like short sleeves. So this, you know, you just had a hard day at work, or you're having guests around on a Friday night on the terrace. This is absolutely perfect. The acidity makes it so nice and juicy and so pleasant, as sort of an opener to your night. It's wonderful. And you could just drink, the drinkability of this and the value for money is just amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you both for that. Why don't we move on to the middle wine, to the first red?
Preto picudo.
Just the name, just Preto Picudo, is like, nobody knows Preto Picudo. And it's only people like Opimium and other very brave pioneers that are more focused on the customer journey and getting their members to learn about new things that would dare to put this in. And it's from like 3 hours northwest of Madrid, in the southern part of the region of Leon. It's a region that used to make more wine than the whole of Ribera del Duero. And it's quite harsh climate. It's high up in the mountains. It's freezing in winter. It's pretty harsh in the summer. It's like boiling hot or freezing, depending on day and night. So really not great for people to live. So as people started to sort of die off in the region and people just left in the mass exodus that's happening in Spain, people are leaving the countryside and going to, you know, study banking or tech industry in the city. They're abandoning these more harsh regions. And it's an incredible shame. So this region of Leon almost went into bankruptcy, if a region could do that. And a young guy, Pedro Mittelbrung, his origins are from Austria, but his family, rest of Spain, he's second generation Spanish. He's a young winemaker. They hired him in Leon to go and create the appellation of Leon. And he went over there and he said, wow, this Prieto Picudo is amazing. It's a grape that's only grown in Leon. It's nothing to do with any other red grape in the entire world. It's not Cabernet Sauvignon planted in Leon called a different name. No, it has its own unique construction and DNA. And at that time, the region was almost about to go out of business, and Pedro was the first person to say, Prieto Picudo is an amazing grape. It's got thick skins, it's got wonderful tanning, it's got wonderful flavor. And he did this just around 20 years ago. And so now there's a lot of people like myself and other people coming in to help him out. And people are just starting to realize the potential of Prieto Picudo. Prieto Picudo as a red grape means tight, elongated red berries, thick skins, massive wild red and dark berry fruits. And it really does deserve to have its place on the Spanish map, and it will do. And this is like the up and coming region of Spain that people still don't even know about, but you guys already have it, which is amazing.
And I think you've said it before, Nicola, is that's the joy of the master's case, right? Is that you're getting these wines that are presenting things that you would never get otherwise.
Exactly. They only make 100,000 bottles throughout the entire range, not just this wine, but the whole range. And they're just beginning to show this, the pleasures of Prieto Picudo, and we have a way to go. But I mean, just tasting this, I mean, it's intense and it's dark and it's wild and it has wonderful sort of wild, intense character. And you think, we are helping by drinking this. It's giving, not only is it giving us pleasure, we are helping revive a whole community. So the one of the farmers is called Gerardo. He has this vine, which is vineyard, which is 110 years old. He has another which is about 80, another is about 60 years old. And what makes this unique is the head of the vine is under the soil. So this is a soil level. The head of the vine is underneath. So when the arms come out, they grow along the floor of the vineyards. So for each farmer, to make sure there's enough oxygen, enough airflow, they have to put up levels of stones to raise these vineyards. And Gerardo is 67 years old. He uses no herbicides, no pesticides, absolutely not. And they're right on the highest elevation, which is about 790 meters. Great oxygen, great airflow. And they only make about 2,500 kilos per hectare. They're all picked by hand, tiny production. This guy has no electricity. If I want to go and see him, I have to phone Pedro, the winemaker, and he goes with a pen and paper, makes a little note, puts it in a plastic envelope and nails it to an outpost on the vineyard. Next Wednesday, Nicola's coming to say hi. That's how he communicates, right? This guy, if you cut one of the arms of his vine, he would know which one he would come from. It's insane.
It is. It's insane. Michael, what are you thinking about this wine?
Well, I was sort of listening transfixed because you've really painted a beautiful picture of that region. And I stumbled across this, I don't know, I was in Spain, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't know anything about it, right? And I'm embarrassed to say, I'm not embarrassed to say, but I was going to Salamanca to buy ham and drove through this region, saw these videos, like, what is going on here? And stopped at this winery. It was just exactly the same as you, Nicola, just blown away. I was like, why isn't everybody drinking Preto Piccolo? It's fantastic. And I love it. I love it. It's got this kind of, you're talking about this wild character, and it mixes this kind of like hedgerow note with red fruit and black fruit. And actually, if you think about it climatically, that's really difficult to do, because normally the red fruit stuff lives in the cold climate camp and black fruit lives in the hot climate camp. And so to get a wine like this, which actually combines both of those, is really tricky. There is some oak on this, but I think it's beautifully integrated, and it doesn't finish with that kind of dusty, powdery, tannic finish that wines that are over oak. It kind of just supports the fruit. So I think he's done a lovely job with the oak. And have you had any old vintages of this, Nicola? Because I'm just, with that acidity, like, it should age, but then probably
thinking that too.
Really young. I don't know. Have you tasted any old stuff?
I have. The acidity that you get, it's kind of like this acidic and more lemon kind of acidity that you get in the middle of the palate because of the high elevation, and because it's Preto Piccolo. It just keeps this going for a long time. His first vintages were over 20 years ago. He still doesn't have those vintages left, but I've had a 14-year-old Preto Piccolo from Pedro, and I was like, wow, it does develop this sort of raisiny character, and the fruit character becomes more evolved, but the acidity still remains, which is kind of like, wow, what am I tasting? The skin is so thick that it has the tanning, which is the backbone, together with the acidity, really just keeps it alive. So, I think it's wonderful to drink right now. But yeah,
you can put it down if you need to.
Yeah. Well, the other amazing thing about this little region, Pedro is in a village. It's like 400 inhabitants, all surrounded by this ancient vine, Preto Piccolo. And traditionally, all of the wines were made in caves. And these caves have been converted into restaurants. And they're all dug really far into the hill. And so you can go there, and Pedro's got in all of there's like about 15 of these old caves, and you go there, and it's got all the old vintages of Pedro's wines. So like, yeah, come on. So I really suggest you come and visit, and let's go for lunch and dinner, and see what old vintage has got. One of the dishes is a Spanish omelette, and it's a regular Spanish omelette, and then it's got sort of a tomato sauce, like a ratatouille sauce, but more liquid. And then you put the tortilla, the Spanish omelette, in that sauce, and sort of let it macerate for a little bit, let it bubble away, and it's absolutely delicious. Black pudding is also a typical thing from the region. Zamora cheese, they're not very far away from us, so really sort of cured, unpasteurized, if you can get that in Canada. On
the black market, yes.
Yes, okay. It's wonderful. It has this wild character, which with the wild character of the wine is just amazing. Yeah. And then lamb. You can never go wrong with, unless you're a vegetarian like myself, but you can never go wrong with the lamb. Yeah. So you have to come and visit. You have to come and visit. You go into these caves and you're like, what century am I in? You know, and in one of them they have a little piano. And if you're partial to a little bit of piano playing, like myself, they just let us play along, which is great.
Wow. Well, and I don't mind saying that one of the options for spring 2024 for an opinion trip is Spain. So perhaps we might just do that. So.
Lots of fun, lots of wine, lots of food.
Sounds like a plan.
And lots of lamb. I remember.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I don't know if
coming-
you saw in my that Greek wedding movie where they said she's vegetarian. She said that's okay. We'll have lamb. Yeah.
My girls have decided, okay, you're vegetarian. Okay, we have a vegetarian lamb. Oh,
Yes,
what's
that's
that?
right.
It's got lettuce.
Yes, that's right. Yes, lamb. Okay, we should go on to the third wine, shouldn't we?
Well, I think that's a great segue because
Yes.
my first trip to Rioja was actually to Bodegas Navacas, which is also in Rioja Baja. And of course, the wines are lovely. And as Nicola said, you know, this region is now sort of coming into its own, having been an afterthought for the big bodegas in Rioja Alta. But and Navacas was, I mean, you know, again, one of these pioneers who was always just, you know, doing their own thing. But anyway, the point of the story is that at the end of the tasting, he brought out all of these prunings from last year, fired them up and cooked lamb, which I think remains to this day my kind of definitive lamb dish, because that with Rioja was just pretty much as good as life gets.
Michael, I will be there tomorrow.
Yes.
And they are having lamb. I'm having lettuce. But yeah, lamb and generally sort of barrel-aged red wines from Spain, you cannot go wrong, right?
Just cannot go wrong. And I think that Prieto Picudo, in all seriousness, in terms of food matches, so I know somebody had asked that, and I do think lamb is, I don't know, the lamb there is amazing. It's not the only place in the world that has great lamb. You know, there's Wales, there's Pauillac, and so on. But the lamb there is fantastic, and I think these kind of wild flavors with this acidity, because always remember, this is the thing people don't really understand about meat, and they you know, they always say, you know, red meat goes with it. Isn't, but red meat's just, if you cook it well, that it doesn't matter. It's just a protein vehicle. But really think about the fat content. The fattiest meat you can get is lamb. Okay, the leanest meat you can get is pork, bizarrely, because if you think about the meat of pork, there's fat all around it, but there's no fat in the meat, which is why you have to brine it. But with lamb, it's incredibly fatty. There's fat all through it. And when you've got that fat, you need acidity or alcohol. Ta-da! It's all here. And then, you know, and if you're cooking it pink, you've got the tannins to go with the protein. So this is just the perfect lamb wine. And I know you're a vegetarian, I'm sorry to say that, but I just know a little bit more about how wonderful lamb is. And with Spanish reds, I mean, with steak, I think, yes, absolutely, you can go to Bordeaux. But with lamb, you need to be in Spain.
But also, right next door to Leon, which is where the Prieto Picudo comes from, literally just 30 minutes towards Portugal, you have this region called Aliste, which is the place where the best beef comes from in the whole of Spain. So up further, well, all along the Duero River, lamb is the thing, but Aliste, beef, like prime, like half a cow on the slate, grill it really fast, you know, almost raw. That's great with all of the Duero River wines and Leon.
Boy, Nicola, you're very rhapsodic about meat for a vegetarian, I have to say.
Well, I live where I live, right?
Yes, no, it's true.
Wonderful. I came as a vegetarian. I will leave as a vegetarian. They will not convince me, but I do get it. I mean, I can see the aromas that come through the meat, and I, you know, take in the wine, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I really get it. But as a vegetarian, what about wild mushroom risotto with really sharp cheese grated in at the end? So you're getting the fat, you're getting the power, but from both the mushrooms and from the cheese, with this Preto Picudo. I've done this in a vineyard with Pedro and with Gerardo. We've cooked in the vineyard, and it's absolutely delicious. So it's kind of like a risotto, wild mushroom risotto, grated, really sharp, powerful cheese, whether it be from Spain, mostly.
Right.
If you have to go to Italy, okay, but just get the power of this like really hard cheese, which really gives up, you know, gives this power for a vegetarian plate with these last two wines are wonderful.
I think that's a great idea. You could have the risotto sort of as a starter and then have the lamb after. So that'd be like just ideal.
Yes.
Aubergines come next.
Right. All right. So shall we do this third wine, the Crianza?
Yes, absolutely. So again, we are on Rioja. More and more producers are really shying away from the Joven Crianza Reserva classification. So the classification system was devised 1 million years ago, and just to help consumers understand what they were buying. Whereas a lot of producers were getting a bit frustrated about the Spanish government that was saying, okay, what about if my wine is ready to come out of barrel now, but I can't have the certification of Crianza for another 3 days? They were like, okay, you can't do it. So my generation, the sort of generation of Spanish winemakers that were sort of born around the 70s, they were born post-Franco, the dictatorship. So post-Franco, new generation, blowing off all the cobwebs. And so all these rules and regulations have just been blown out of the window, which is why Spain is so exciting, so creative, and so wonderful right now. But we still have those classic producers that like to have Joven, Crianza, and Reserva. Traditionally, the more time in oak, the better the wine. My generation decided that was not the case. But it does help you to understand, if you're buying a Crianza, you have some oak. If you're buying a Reserva, you have even more oak. It doesn't mean to say, though, that there's a Crianza at $10 or $15 in the monopoly, or 15 or 20 or 25. The word Crianza is not necessarily a qualitative indication, it's just a time in oak indication. So you could have Crianzas at all different levels of price and all different levels of quality, like you can in Crianza. So this Crianza was created by a bunch of farmers that joined forces 1 million years ago, because they were being screwed by other producers outside. All joined forces. I will be there tomorrow morning with them. They are a relatively large group of farmers, but they have some of the oldest vineyards in the whole of Rioja. And while Rioja Alta and Rioja Alavesa have become more prestigious, all these producers from the northern part of Rioja all coming down and buying grapes for these guys. And they just decided, why don't we make our own wine? And so basically what you're getting is an extreme quality wine at half the price if it was labeled under Rioja Alta or Rioja Alavesa. Super down to earth. It's all farmer owned, farmer run, and price quality. Without doubt, this is the best Rioja on the market.
Very good. And Michael?
Simply put.
Yeah. I think that, you know, I suppose I don't disagree with anything Nicolà said. I think it is also horses for courses. If you're looking for a Rioja to cellar for 20 years, you might want to go to Alavesa, because you're going to have more acidity there. And I think it's the same, but you could say the same thing in Bordeaux, or you could say the same thing in Burgundy, or, you know, Barolo or Brunello. They don't have to start with a B, but it helps. But, you know, and I think that's the beauty in wine, that there isn't one kind of platonic form of Rioja and they all have to taste that way. So I think that those terroir differences within Rioja are probably going to become more important as time goes on. And we're starting to see that in other regions, non-French regions of Europe, where now the law is changing and they're enshrining in law these sub-classifications within the major areas like Barolo. And that's going to spread into Chianti Classico, and it's going to spread into Brunello. And I'm sure we'll see that even more in Spain as time goes on. And I applaud that. I think those are the kind of terroir differences which you can't fake. And I think it's antithetical to the New World formula of, give it a varietal, give it a kind of paint by numbers winemaking set, and, a Chardonnay from Chile or a Chardonnay from South Africa or Australia or California. And I remember doing, when I was teaching for the WSET, we were instructed as examiners to accept any of the following countries for those kind of wines. You get full marks if you said South Africa, Chile, Argentina, California, Australia. Any of those would get you full marks because the examiners understood that it was almost impossible to tell those differences apart. And I think that that's something that Europe has and should prize. So I don't look down my nose at Rioja Baca. I don't worship at the altar of Rioja Alavesa. I think sometimes I prefer the slightly more full-bodied, richer style of wines from Baca, and sometimes there's kind of more ethereal, lighter, more age-worthy wines from Alavesa.
And also, with Rioja Baja, the value for money, you don't get this anywhere else in the world, I think. And there's a reason why when people think of Spain, people think of Rioja. I don't live in Rioja, as you know. I live in another region, which is also amazing. But my admiration to Rioja for how they have grown their grapes, taken care of their culture, their history, their values, their work ethic, and how soft and rounded and wonderful the wines are. It's incredible. I completely understand why Rioja is Spain's most loved red wine region. They have from Joven level, which is young and fresh and fruit forward, Crianza level, which is around 12 months in oak, depending on the producer, to reservas and grand reservas, which have up to 5 years aging in the cellars. The tanning and the volume and the texture on the palate is absolutely wonderful, while maintaining the acidity and the vibrantness. Is that an English word? I don't know.
Vibrancy.
Vibrancy, yeah.
That's right.
And I will be in Rioja with Marqués de Reynosa tomorrow. I love them. I think they do such an amazing job at keeping alive all of these traditions and maintaining this elegance and beauty in what they do. I think it's just only to be applauded, really.
I've enjoyed all three of these wines very much, and the Crianza, I get that. In 2018, at this price point, is amazing that we're getting an aged wine already. And yeah, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, because we'll wrap this up. It's middle of the night for Nicolà, and Michael's been tasting wine all day, so I think he's ready for a beer.
Oh, I'm also ready for a beer.
Ah, there you are. Yes, be right over. So yeah,
we
no,
had
it's
a winemaker tasting just right now. So
oh wow, yeah,
we're ready for a beer.
That's right. Well, thank you so very much, Nicolà, for putting this case together for us. As you've said, it's unique in the world. I think that Opinion members benefit from the master's case in being able to try such unusual wines and all of these styles of wine that I don't think anybody else would have a chance to. I'm just reiterating what you've already said, so I won't waste everybody's time. And Michael, thank you so much for your perspective. I was struck dumb after you talked about wine regions in Spain, because I certainly couldn't add to that. it's so humbling for me to be in the presence of people that know wine to the extent that you two do, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us. And we'll be putting this on the website on our YouTube channel so that people can look at it again if they'd like. And I agree, Jean-Paul, this is one of the best master's case presentations that we've ever had. And because Jean-Paul has given us a compliment at the end, I will do a joke after all. And that is that the weekend forecast is 100% chance of wine.
Yes.
There you are.
Just before you cut off, I would just like to give the voice to our producers that every case from our producers that is sold through Opimium makes a massive difference. All of our producers are small, they work super hard. In many cases, they're a husband and wife team, and they have to look after the vineyards, look after the kids, make the wine, taste the barrels, buy the bottles, get the bottling line in, send the invoices, do the Instagram, and you know, they are unique producers with such a heartfelt passion in everything that they do, in every bottle that they make. And that's what between Spanish Palate, my company, and Opimium try to do, is to bring this to Canada. It's an honor for them. It really does make a difference. We're not factory wine. No, you know, we're not sort of generating extra wealth for a big CEO and a big, massive multinational company. We are really helping to ensure that the next generation is going to take over these vineyards, and the Spanish countryside is really big, you know, sort of having a better life. So thank you for everything that you've already done, because you've done an amazing job. We're just about to, you know, finish our finalized, this offer that's currently open. Any wines that you buy from Spain and Spanish Palate, there's Marcos de Reynos is already on there, El Aprendiz, there's a ton of Spanish Palate wines there. They make an absolute difference to these people's lives. So thank you so much, and really do come and visit us. Contact Opimium. We will really take care of you in Spain. We will give you lamb or lettuce, whatever you prefer.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Both, right?
Thank
That's
you.
both. Yes,
Both.
that's right. Thank you,
So,
Nicolà. It's so lovely.
you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Michael. Thank you,
Cheers.
Kim Chen. Appreciate it. Have a good evening, everybody, and morning. Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.